Hi, Deborah. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and the other team members about myself and summarize my presentation. As you already know, one of the major components of my presentation is developing a clarity of understanding. Understanding who you are and what the motivators and detractors are in formulating for what you do. This deeper reflection allows you to accurately examine yourself and make the necessary adjustments and alignments of the who you are to others' perceptions about you and ultimately your mission and goal. A quote by Alexander Lloyd summarizes this concept. I know well who I am, and for better or for worse, this knowledge must serve me a lifetime. So, who am I? Now, I probably don't have to tell you again that I'm Veronica McHugh. But our first introduction to anyone is our name. And there seems to have been a little bit of debate, bordering on controversy, on what my name was going to be. As the story goes, my father loved a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow called The Courtship of Miles Standish. So he wanted to call me Priscilla. My mother, not so keen on that name, and all I have to say is thanks, Mom. So they needed to reach a compromise. After a lot of discussion and a review of books they love, a literary compromise on a story or a set of stories that they both enjoy. Archie comic books. Now, seeing my cousin Elizabeth, or Betty, was born a month earlier, Archie was a very popular comic book in my parents' day. I, by default, became Veronica. With my name set, I grew up in Middle Village, New York, the oldest of 5 children. By the time I reached high school, I already knew I wanted to be a teacher in the field of special education. As I discussed in my presentation, all our experiences and our interpretation of these experiences shape the what in what we ultimately decide to do. This was certainly true in my case, and through a series of encounters, discussions, and support from my parents and a teacher mentor, I did begin to shape the who I would be. I went to Marymount Manhattan College and earned my degree as a special education classroom teacher, and took my first teaching assignment in a school on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. My experiences in those first early years of teaching affirmed my desire to continue my master's in special education with a concentration in reading. Unfortunately, back in the day, that turned out not to really be an option. Special education was still a relatively newcomer in the field of education, so the courses offered were identical to the courses I had taken undergraduate, right down to the textbook. Fortunately, my advisor offered a different perspective entirely. This turned into one of those serendipitous learning opportunities I discussed in the presentation. Chance greeted by right-mindedness. She suggested I considered the Educational Leadership and Administration, or DELA program. As an administrator with special education background, it was her opinion there would be many unique opportunities to help students. Although I was very reluctant at first, I did finally decide to be open to a different opportunity. Applied and was accepted to the program. I quickly found out my advisor was right. And after I earned my degree, had the opportunity to work in some pretty amazing schools here in, here in New York, Maryland, and Florida. Each one of these schools helped me to become a better educator and develop many of the steps I discussed in the presentation.